let's talk about developing your commercial awareness. And by the way, I thought I would take the jacket off and switch it up now and again to surprise you. So, do you understand your company's business model? I have asked that question quite often of DAs, and sometimes, in fact, even with graduates, and in fact, if I widen it out, even with some of my colleagues, right, I've been working in the company for X years, the business model can sometimes be a little hazy. So I would encourage you to make sure you do understand the business model. And I know that this can sound a little silly. Like, obviously, we know that company A sells widgets. That's their business model. Is it? Is it? Because sometimes that's the public business model. That's the one that everybody thinks about. But actually, what the company really does is make money on the interest of the thing, whatever, right? So this is, I think, important to understand what are you in. So you're doing 4 years in this organization, for example. What's their business? How does it actually work? And then you may actually find there may be this business, that business, this business, this business, the whole thing, this bit. This one's really profitable, that one's not so much, but that one enables this one. So, for example, in banking, you'll often find that a full service bank, so that's a bank that has retail customers and SMEs, business customers, big companies, institutional companies, and then private and wealth management, right? One of the reasons they have these 4 divisions, for example, is retail and wealth is doing really well at the moment, and the other 2 not so much. For examples, they balance out, right? And then, because it's cyclical, because sometimes you'll have some divisions doing really well, that's why the company's business model is created this way, because this relies upon that, relies upon this, and backs up this and offsets that. It's worthwhile making sure you have a good grasp, because you'll be surprised at how many individuals, sometimes very senior, don't know. And that's because in many cases, you don't need to know to do your job. You don't need to know the business model often, especially if your job is doing that and doing this and doing that. But I think it is important, and I think it's healthy to create that awareness in your mind. Understand what the financial drivers are in your company. If you understand that, then you'll generally understand how your senior executive colleagues are thinking and what's motivating them and what's driving them. And it's quite helpful if you have at least a passing awareness of what's going on, so that you can comment that, so that you can ask about it. So if you find yourself sitting with one of the senior execs, you can be discussing this, and you can pitch and present information in meetings with that in mind. So if you know there's a big drive on to reduce cost because of this war or this thing or that that legal reality, right? So all these external factors that can be affecting the business, you can not only appear briefed and knowledgeable, but you are briefed and knowledgeable, right? How do you get that data? How do you get this information? Well, first of all, by asking others. By asking others in the team, and you are expected to be asking questions. So feel free and do go and ask. Do watch internal briefing videos. Do look at your quarterly earnings. So most public companies, well, every public company, depending on the jurisdiction, will need to do a quarterly earning report to market. And that can be both a hindrance and a benefit, but typically many view that as a hindrance because you're constantly having to chase the market sentiment, right? So you're updating investors, you're updating the market every quarter with performance metrics. And then you're doing the annual report as well. And that annual report is really, really critical. But the quarterly, you'll often see many executives or many exec teams will be wheeled out in front of the media or the analysts or both. And they will be presenting both to you because they're updating the employees, but they're also presenting to the market. And you'll see each head of division saying, well, this quarter we've seen this rise, this fall, this thing. And usually they'll talk about what they're doing about that thing, whether it's good news, bad news, or a mix or whatever. You'll see these heads of division talking through, we will be investing here, or as a result of the investment we committed to last year, and this thing's now coming online, and this thing's doing this. So making sure that you are developing your commercial awareness and understanding what's going on in the company is really important. And it's very easy, but don't just look away, right? It is easy when it's not your responsibility, it's not a prime requirement. But this stuff infers and helps give context to you looking good, being informed, and then being able to pitch information, present stuff in the right way at the right time. So annual reports, read them. The most important sections of the annual report typically are some of the key financial figures, and they're usually presented in very nice ways and easy to consume, especially if accounting isn't your thing. You can go and find the nice high-level metrics in the annual report. Do look at the chairman's report. Chairperson will always give, usually that's at the front, they'll give their assessment, certainly on an annual report. Then the CEO will give their assessment. Then you'll often have heads of division giving their assessment and other areas and so on. That first bit, and you can kind of see how annual reports are constructed. You've got the big wedge, lots of nice looking, lots of photos and set out very nicely. That stuff is worth flicking through, reading through, right? It will give you an idea. In fact, a lot of it shouldn't be a surprise because you've been paying attention, right? You've been paying attention in the internal briefings, the all hands monthly videos with the CEO and so on. You've been there, right? Because you've been boosting your commercial awareness on the company. So then when the annual report or the quarterly report comes around, you should be able to recognize this. Okay. It's really useful to be able to say, well, look, I saw the annual report yesterday, or I saw the quarterly last month, and the executive was really focusing on that thing, so maybe that should guide us. Watch everybody in the room go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So what's the business model? How does your company make money, right? Formally and informally, you can see what people say, ask around, okay? Research that, make sure it's not a surprise to you. Read the data, look at the news. Your company will have regular news updates, right? As well as your annual reports. Make sure nothing is a surprise to you, okay? So if necessary, set up a Google alert. Most company share or investor websites or the news sections will give you the option to subscribe. So the minute they publish a press release, you get that data. And then make sure you're also following competitors. What's moving with competitors? So you might also set some notifications and make sure that you are following the annual reports, perhaps the quarterly reports of some of your key competitors. It's just useful to be informed. Why this stuff matters. Often, big news, serious news that will affect you, right? And your role is if a divisional director resigns and a new divisional director comes in. That's stuff you want to know about. And ideally, you want to be briefed the moment it's public, the moment it is announced. Sometimes that comes from the internet. You can subscribe to updates there. But often, if it's market moving, if it's sensitive information, it will be published on the corporate news section as a press release or a news release or a market update. So don't be surprised. And make sure you're not surprised. Make sure you're not the one going, what? Wait, what? What was that? You want to look as though you're briefed. The final thing I'd say is just Google. Set up Google Alerts. You can just go to Google Alerts or Google News, and you can set up alerts for the name of your CEO. It's the name of your CEO and company, right? Then you're going to get anything interesting popping into your email, maybe your personal email or your business email, to update you and let you know what's moving. That is a really good technique. And then any alert from the Financial Times or any newspaper you subscribe to. But Google News typically is comprehensive. Bloomberg, PA, etc. A lot of these all have free alert capability. Just so you can see what's going on. Don't be surprised. Okay, so work on developing your commercial awareness.